people knew about the refurbishment at Grenfell. I mean, prior to that, people knew about the state of the building in Grenfell, which is why it was going to be modernised, because it hadn't been touched since the 70s. So there was very little or no issues around it. Nobody covered the safety issues or predicted any of the safety issues in the media. There were concerns about the windows. There were concerns about the gas and electricity, which used to just kind of go out at any given time. That people were saying, this isn't safe. And then where their boilers and that were put inside the flats, people were complaining about that during the refurbishment. Rather than there being any media coverage around that, actually what the local authority did was threaten some of the complainers with eviction if they didn't let the work contractors in to complete the rest of the dodgy work. So no, absolutely no coverage with media, even about the refurbishment, and certainly nothing about the safety of the buildings. And this is after Lakanal House has already happened. So on the day, once daylight comes, the press is all over the place. They've set up a cordoned area by the Notting Hill Methodist Church solely for them. They are talking to lots of people. You were just being approached by people on the street saying, did you live in the tower? Did you know anybody else in the tower, etc. We don't see the fallout of that until perhaps late in the evening. And what the press immediately go for is the types of people that lived in Grenfell. So the first one is around hundreds of undocumented immigrants living in the building. And so with that narrative, it was like, oh yeah, and plus there was lots of subletting, people on benefits, all that kind of stuff comes into play. So that's the first major intrusion into our community, because we're just like, actually, the people that we know that lived in the tower that are still missing at this time, ordinary working people, 14 of them actually had bought their flats in the building. So I think that's the first intrusion. They are there for absolutely days. And then you start to see press stories appearing where it's, ex-person that lived in the tower was, a notorious drug dealer or, hadn't done this or hadn't done that. In terms of the campaign, the first thing we get that worries us is the Daily Telegraph runs a page of us, 6 of us they chose, saying, these are the agitators, who are making trouble in the Grenfell area, making political mileage out of Grenfell. I mean, and at that point, we've still got people missing. We don't know the final numbers. And had got various people locally to say, they are troublemakers. Well, not troublemakers. We were just kind of organising. Actually, we were the ones that brought calm to the area amongst the community to kind of think through what we were doing. And again, the press is just constantly there trying to find out who are easy targets, really. To keep the story going, as opposed to focusing on the key issues. We said on the day that RBKC, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, were completely responsible for that. But actually, they just let that pass. Nobody went for local government. Nobody went for central government. Central government was down on the ground, as you know. Theresa May came in the first day. She didn't even talk to the community. She spoke to the emergency services and went. By the time others had come down to visit, so, Jeremy Corbyn came down. He was the leader of the Labour Party at the time. The mayor came down. We had people like Adele and, Lily Allen, who lives in the area anyway. They were there doing their thing. And then she comes back Theresa May comes back the following day and meets the community. And that's when she announces the inquiry, that there was going to be a public inquiry. No consultation with the community around that. The two key players who were previous councillors who had overseen the refurbishment, they were just left there still seeing over us. And we could see them on the road and that, just kind of standing there having a chat amongst themselves. And we were saying, they're going to cover this up, they're going to cover this up. A few months later then, one of the people who had lived in the walkways, so they call them the finger blocks that run out the tower, who were all evacuated. One of the Sunday nasties ran a story about him being given accommodation in a hotel, but actually going back to his flat. Well, of course, he's going to go back to his flat. He can't live in there because it's drenched in water and it's under the tower that we don't know whether that building is stable or not yet. But, you know, he's ran out on the evening of the fire, you know, with his keys and his phone, literally. He wants to go back into his home to pick up a few bits and pieces. But they moulded that story into, and this is really typical of the rest of the people that live there, in terms of, do you know what I mean? They're just scammers. They're just, you know, conning us out of public money. And I think at that point, I was just like, wow. But there was nothing we could do. There's a while after that then that Jon Snow from Channel 4 picks up on exactly what's going on. And he makes an apology about the media, because he realises actually he'd overseen a debating competition, and one of the girls that won that was actually one of those that died in the tower. So that's what pulls him in. And he actually does, I think there's a quote with him somewhere kind of saying, look, the media, we're not helpful here. Okay, we're making things worse for these people. Stop trying to find your story with something that's not happening. The media did not hold anybody to account, and they didn't fulfill their duty as kind of almost the voices of the people. They were very much against the people in terms of making them look like a rabble and the undeserving poor, as we say. Most of the media was very focused on, you know, protecting the politicians, whoever else. How much they know about what was happening in the background, we can only allege that. But the way that they were very feral in the way that they went for the community. Shortly after that, again, we see them going for opportunists who had said that they were living in the tower. And there was a quick succession of prosecutions. Rightly so, but that was still the main focus of their story. So safety, you know, the key things, privatisation, disgusting kind of profit-making stuff, how they lost, even at the loss of life, even the way they read the numbers of those that had died. There used to be a thing about local media. You know, a lot of the big journalists used to cut their teeth on, you know, your local village, you know, chronicle. You know, it's almost like that drop the dead donkey story kind of thing. And they don't do that anymore. So they're not visible in communities, trying to get the warming story, or actually to know what the issues are in a local community and reporting that in a fair and decent way. So they don't do that anymore. Secondly, it's money making. You know, it's what they deem to be kind of sexy stories always include a large element of destroying, whether it's an individual or individuals. And that's the bit for me that needs to change. The other thing is that once those things happen and you're caught up in it, there's nothing you can do as an individual. You either have to use up a lot of energy in terms of complaints, sending emails. If they think that they're in the wrong, you might get an apology on page 12 of a publication. If not, and you want to take it forward, we can't get legal aid to fight these people. So how many cases are they kind of upholding during a year? And it's almost like, you'll just get over it. It's still that, it'll be tomorrow's kind of chip paper mentality. But actually, they destroy lives. The press's behaviour did hinder the pursuit of justice, because if they'd have focused on those key things around safety and how that refurbishment had gone from day one, they would have had a better story and we would be in a better place now. So the fires that have happened after Grenfell possibly could have been preventable if they had focused on those in the first place, and if they had gone to, central government, local government, and those corporates from the off. The media, we shouldn't find out from a public inquiry that people like Arconic and Celotex were selling dangerous goods on the market. The media could have done that for us.